Hello everybody, my name is Marlo and today I'm going to show you some of my favorite block palettes that I like to use for building in Minecraft. Now this video is going to be nice and simple. We're not really going to go over the hows and whys of certain blocks working better than others. This is not going to be a lesson in color theory or anything like that. Instead, I'll just show you some of my builds with the block palette that I used and why I like them. Then hopefully it'll give you some good ideas of what blocks you can use for your next build. We'll begin with a nice simple one here in my starter house from my old hardcore world. This really is just Deepslate, Calcite, Copper and then Spruce and Dark Oak wood. That's it really. I'm just using a lot of the different variants which adds a whole bunch of different texture in. So with the Deepslate we have a lot of the different options there. The Calcite has some Diorite mixed in too, and the Copper on the roof can oxidize and change over time too. I've also got a similar block palette with my horse stables here. I just really love the combo of the dark oak wood with any of the Deepslate blocks. They always work very well together. Maybe you're looking for something a little bit brighter. In that case, I'd recommend pairing spruce with regular oak wood instead of dark oak wood. Just seems to be a bit more vibrant in that case. You can also pair it quite nicely with white terracotta. They also match very nicely with any of the stone types, or brick also works pretty well. Once again, getting some texture incorporated into the build here, using all of those different stone types to create something that's a little bit more interesting than just using one. Also, in a lot of the builds in my custom village here, instead of just using white terracotta, I've also got some bone blocks and mushroom stem mixed in too, just to get that textured look. So be creative and see what blocks are kind of similar in color. Alternatively, you could build just out of wood blocks alone. This one is mostly oak, spruce and dark oak, as well as some of the other utility blocks added in there. You can see we've also got some composters and barrels as some accent blocks, which I think look really nice. This next build is very similar to the other one, the only real difference being we've got a copper roof, which I think goes wonderfully with spruce wood. There's also some stone at the bottom of the build, as well as a little bit of white terracotta paired up nicely with the stripped dark oak logs. I really like using those two together. As you can see, I've also got that going on in my medieval school build here. This palette is pretty basic, but I think a really good one. Just basically dark oak, spruce, a little bit of white terracotta, or calcite would also work pretty well here. And then we have that stone varianted bottom half of the build, as well as using some different color glass panes. As you may be able to see, we've got white, dark grey and light grey stained glass. Switching it up a little bit here, not quite as much wood used in this build, although we do have a little bit with that jungle wood there, which goes really nicely next to the brick, obviously keeping that red theme going on. I also love the fully oxidized copper blocks next to the Deepslate and the brick there. I think those three blocks alone just pair wonderfully. Got a similar thing going on with this build here. Instead, we're using the exposed copper, which is the second variant along. Still got the brick and the jungle, but a little bit of tuff added in there too, as well as some other stone blocks and also some dark prismarine. You can see at the top there. That block there, dark prismarine, goes with anything. I'm not kidding you. It's expensive to get, but it's very worth it. This is my train station build from my current survival world, and I love all of the block choices going on here, especially that yellow terracotta. Just gives it a nice little pop of color and vibrancy, which I think the build would be missing without it. So don't be afraid to get comfortable with using some bright colors because they can really help. You could even do something like this and get one of the brightest, most colorful blocks in the game, the Amethyst block, and use it throughout the entire build. Now, I love this because I think they're just such beautiful highlights in and amongst all of the other rather dull looking blocks, if that makes sense. The Amethyst just totally pops and makes this build what it is. Definitely one of my favorite block palettes for this one. This next build has another one of my favorite block palettes, and I think that's mainly because of the lovely red of the mangrove wood paired next to the bright white diorite and calcite. I just really love those two together. The stone and the spruce and the Deepslate is nice too, but the red and the white next to each other, I love it. The observatory here, it's pretty basic, but I think the block palette actually works pretty well. We've got some brick and granite at the bottom, diorite and calcite in the middle, and a copper top, as well as some woods in there too. Spruce, of course, with some barrels, those always go very nicely together, some dark oak, and a little bit of acacia too. I feel like crimson wood isn't used a whole lot in this game, maybe for a good reason. It is very harsh on the eyes, a super vibrant block, and doesn't go with many, but one I do think it goes with is dark oak wood. Those two together, I think they work really well. This is my starter house for my current survival world, and there is a lot going on with this one. It has a very big block palette. I don't know how many blocks you'll be able to see on the screen, but there's quite a few, more than most. And it's just a good example of you don't have to pick just a handful of blocks to make a build up. You can use a whole bunch, cobble together whatever you think might fit, and just experiment and see what you can come up with, because that's exactly what I did for this one, and I think it turned out pretty well. I think this block palette works really well with this specific style of building, which is Japanese inspired, if you hadn't have guessed already. It's got a lot of dark oak wood, plenty of spruce, some sandstone as well, and also we got some cobbled deepslate for the roof, which you could definitely switch out for some dark prismarine. That would look very nice as well. Another pretty simple one here, although it might not look it on first glance, but that's just because we got a lot of texture going on. Most of it really is just stone variants, but we also have some copper in the roof. We got a deep slate tile roof outline, which I think goes really nice with those two blocks, as well as a little bit of spruce, and then also some granite and brick for the outside work area. I absolutely love the bluish green that this building gives off as a whole, with the warped wood, the basalt, the prismarine, and the copper. Those four work really nicely together, but we've also got some wild cars mixed in there with the calcite and the deep slate, as well as some jungle wood. It's a little bit of a weird one, but I really quite like it. But those first four especially work well together. A lot of you may have picked up on this by now, or if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you will already be well aware, but in my survival world, I like to use some weird block palettes, stuff that shouldn't really work together. I try and make it work, and this building right here, my honey factory, is a prime example of that. There's a lot to take in with this one. We've got spruce, oak, acacia, and barrels, and that's just the wood. We've also got some stone, some smooth stone, bricks, deep slate, bone blocks. There's even some crimson added in there I forgot about. Basically, there's a crazy amount of blocks going on in here that shouldn't really blend well together, but because where I've used them on the build, it actually kind of does. So for example, at the top section, we have the bone blocks with the deep slate and the dark prismarine and the crimson. Those are all kind of grouped very well together. If we were to go ahead and chuck some oak wood up there, I don't think that would work quite as well, which is why I've got it down with the brick and the stone. So it can kind of just depend on where you use the blocks in the build with how well it works. The moral of this video is just do some experimenting and see what works well together. Once again, my survival base here is a prime example of all of those different blocks coming together when maybe they shouldn't work. Not quite as much with this one, although we do have some random warped stems in there, which maybe don't fit too well with the rest of the build, but I actually quite like that little bit of differentiation there right at the top of the build, where we eventually get up to the crystal right at the top. Another thing I like about this one is the gradient we have with the base of the build. We've got some black concrete powder there, some blackstone and basalt, and eventually transitioning into deep slate. Last but not least, we have this build, which is not only one of my favorite houses I've ever made, but also one of my favorite block palettes. There's a lot going on here. There's many blocks used, but I think they all really pair very nicely together. We got some stone, we got plenty of woods, as well as some deep slate in there as well, not to mention the calcite and all of those other ones. All in all, a great block palette. I can highly recommend this one if you want to build a small house, or in this case, a very large one. So there we go, everybody. There's a whole bunch of block palettes that I hope will come in handy for your Minecraft building. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.